Thank you.
Wow, this is a great turnout. Thank you very much for taking time out of your day to join us for this important training. You know, throughout the year, we do a series of training. At the beginning of the year, we do a lot online. And this civilian response and active shooter training really is pretty new in the Wenatchee Valley, isn't it? The last year or so?
Yeah, that's when we started actually providing it for the public.
Yeah, so Wenatchee Police Department, I know Grant County's done a lot with it, Douglas County as well, have provided opportunities for businesses and civilians to attend this training. Brooke attended downtown with Mike, I attended at the CTC, found it very informative, very valuable. So we thought what a great opportunity to bring it into our own staff. So really happy to introduce Officer Corey Bernash and Sergeant Mark Hewson from the Wenatchee Police Department. It's about a 2-hour training. I know he's probably going to share that some of the videos might be a little disturbing. So if that's something that you're concerned about, feel free to step out. We'll come out and let you know when they're over. We want this to be comfortable, safe, and something that you can feel free to ask questions and get some information that will help you. It is also being videotaped by Debbie. She's over at the CTC doing that for us. I'm not sure if she can hear us, but hi, Debbie. And we'll send out the link for that, so if you're interested in watching a piece of it later, you'll have access to that. So welcome, and thank you again.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Like you said, I'm Officer Bernash with the Wenatchee Police Department. Currently, I serve as just a regular patrol officer. I also act as an active shooter instructor for the Wenatchee Police Department. So me and another officer, Officer Kevin Battis, we train our guys on how to respond to active shooter situations. Special guest appearances back there, Sergeant Mark Hewson. He's one of the patrol sergeants. He's here to kind of make sure I don't mess up too bad. Normally we have my partner, everything, Officer Kevin Battis, would be here, but he has a sick little boy. So he stayed home this morning. So it's just me. So hopefully we'll get through it effortlessly and painlessly as possible. Like she said, there's going to be some human suffering throughout this presentation. There's a couple of videos, a couple of recordings, and I'll be sure to tell you beforehand. So if that's something you're just not real sure how you can handle it, feel free to step out. It's understandable. This is a hard topic to talk about, but we'll get through it. And if you do step out, one of us will let you know so you can come back in after it's done. So the class we provide, it actually comes from the Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training, the ALERT training. They're actually out of Texas, and they're federally granted to run these studies, to do this test, and they actually provide it all over the U.S., and it's free for law enforcement to go train. The federal government funds that, so we can just go get the training, and then we can bring it out. They do, they call this one the CRAS, the Civilian Response to Active Shooter Events. They provide that one. They trained me and the other officer on how to train our guys. So they've been doing this for quite a while. They know what they're doing. They know what they're talking about. So that's kind of what we're bringing to you today. So know that this information is very current. This is the stuff that a lot of places across the U.S. are using. So it's going to be similar to what they're getting over in New York or anywhere else. So they wanted to create a system that's going to be universal so that it doesn't change when you go to, a different state or something like that. So real quick, here's an outline of what we're going to be talking about. First, we're going to talk about real quick about disaster response, kind of the things we go through as just human beings when we're involved in certain situations, not necessarily active shooter, but natural disasters, things like 9/11. We're going to go through some of that, what you kind of go through, how you can get through the steps faster so that you make sure you stay safe and stay alive. Next, we'll go into the actual active shooter event. So we're going to talk about the things you can do to help make sure you get out alive and others out alive, and we can make it as best as possible. So after that, we'll go through the civilian response. And then law enforcement response, that's something we kind of added in towards the end. That's just what you can expect once we show up. Sometimes it can be confusing, chaotic scene. I don't know if you guys watched the San Bernardino on the news, but there was a lot of law enforcement response. There was a lot of SWAT teams, a lot of different people. They all look different. So we just kind of bring that in to kind of talk to you, our mindset, what we're going through, so you're aware and know what's happening after we show up. And then at the very end, we're going to have a little video. It's about 11 minutes long, and it kind of brings everything together in a dramatization that they created. And it really highlights the key points that we're going to talk about and kind of puts it into perspective for you. And you actually see some of it, how it works, and the things we're going to go through, and the steps that you can take. So first, how many of you remember Columbine? Yeah, so that was April 20th, 1999. This was a 1990s. Yeah, 99, sorry. This was a huge shift, not only for law enforcement, but also for civilians. This was one of the first that was broadcast internationally during the event. It definitely wasn't the first active shooter event, but it was the first one to be publicized, as big as it was going on. And there was a lot of things that happened with this for law enforcement. Before this, our response for just local law enforcement when we go to a scene like this was to contain and call out SWAT. That was it. They were trained to handle these situations. They had the bigger guns, they had the body armor, and they had that training to handle these kind of situations. So when this was aired, a lot of people were wondering, why are the cops just outside waiting while there's still shooting going on? So this really caused local law enforcement to rethink their tactics, to rethink how they're going to react. And that's where we kind of get into this. Now we train our guys what to do. And we actually train our guys, as soon as they show up, they go in. 2-man teams, 1-man team. It's just as soon as we get there, there's no more stand by and wait, because we have to stop the killing. So there's going to be a little suffering in this. This is an actual 911 recording. The lady's Patty Nielsen. She was actually a teacher who got a couple kids in the library, and they were the ones, unfortunately, when they broke into the library, they were hidden under desks, and they kind of went down the line and just kind of were shooting them under their desks. Patty does a great job on 911. She also did what she was taught. How many teachers are taught, in case of any emergency other than a fire drill, hide under your desk? That was what was taught back then. So she did a great job. She did what she was trained to do. And unfortunately, in the end of the day, that's where it shifts for civilians also. We have to think of stuff to do other than just sit and hide. So we'll play this for a little bit. Sometimes the audio, and there will be subtitles so you can read it. It's going to be off. It's just how it works sometimes. So try and pick one or the other and see if you can get, and just pay attention to, the information she's giving, what she's saying, and what 911's kind of telling her is going on too.
Deputy County 911. Yes, I just called my high school. There was a shooter with a gun. It was shot out of window. And it was I've been Columbine High School. I got no much in my shoulder. And there was just a black piece through it. Okay, has anybody been injured? Yes. Okay. I was going in a panic. And I was in the library. I thought, okay, we're getting them there. Who's the student, ma'am? I did not know the student. Okay. I thought I was talking about it. I thought I said, what's going on out there? He said, oh, it's fine. We're going to get back. Oh, they don't have to go. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't know why he's not back. See what was going on. He turned the gun straight at us and shot. And my God, the window went out. And he kept standing there with me. I think he got hit. Okay. Something in my shoulder. Okay. We better hop on the way, ma'am. Okay. Stay on the line with me. Do we know where he's at? I'm sorry? Do we know where he's at? Okay. He's right outside of here. He's outside? Outside of the hall. Outside of the hall or outside of the hall? Okay. There are lines and things going off that smoke. My God's smoke is like coming into this room. Okay. I got the kids on their table here. I don't know what's happening in the rest of the building. Don't think that's smoke and you know what I don't know. I'm sure someone has been calling 911 by the time. Yeah, we got a lot of people on. Okay. I just want you to stay in the line with me. We need to know what's going on. Okay. Okay. I am on the floor. Okay. You got the kids there? Right. And I tried everything in the way on the side. Down the block. Doesn't matter if you can lock the doors. I do not.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I can try to go, but anyway, she's right outside that door. I'm not supposed to go to the
That's okay.
That's what it is. I'm not supposed to go there. Okay.
That's okay.
I told the kids to get on the floor. I told the kids all the children are on the floor under the table. Yeah, they're all under the table.
Okay.
And
As long as we just try and
no one said a word.
okay, as long as we can keep everyone very calm as we can.
I hear some going out there going on right
Yeah,
now.
we've got alarms going off now as well.
Yeah, there's one. This one is still with smoke.
Okay. Keep everyone low to the floor.
Yeah. Everyone stay on the floor. Stay on the floor. Stay on the table.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, I know,
I don't know. I didn't. I said, what is that? She's up. She was outside in the hunt. And I was like, oh, it's so dark. And he was like,
I know.
I didn't shut up. I did not know who the student was. I don't even know if I thought he was wearing black. It was very dark. He was out there. He looked like he was playing out too. Somebody said, what is that? I said, the playing out there. He told me to video for that thing. The other day he was
Right.
and I said, well, that's not, that's the place I lived in. I was going out there to say no. Oh my God, that was really close. That was
Okay. What's your name, ma'am? Patty?
All right. So Patty did a great job. Towards the end there, after kind of the initial shock of everything going on, she started saying, it was a male student, he's wearing all black. She was kind of giving out some of those descriptors, and that's really what's going to help us, because we're coming into a scene that we know. So those identifiers are good. Did you guys know? Well, the remote didn't. Do you guys, you remember what she said she thought was going on when the shooting first started?
That he thought it was a video?
She thought it was a production, right? And that's going to be what we're going to talk about. One of our first stages is denial. She thought they were just doing a production out in the hallway, and she knew it was probably not a good idea to have cap guns and stuff in school, so she was going to go tell them. But that was her first reaction was, obviously these aren't real guns. They can't be real guns. They have to be cap guns. So towards the end there, we actually know that they did come into the library there. Patty actually survived the encounter. She actually got into an office in the library, was able to lock the door. Some of the students, so under the tables, they just went down the line and started shooting them under the tables. So that was a big shift for us, because we can't just hide under our tables now, because that's what's going to happen, okay? So that's why we offer this class, and the things we're going to go through are to give you the tools necessary to help prevent that loss of life. Alright, so disaster response. The background science of how people behave. So this is what we're going to talk about real quick. Just kind of some things that you're going to go through, some things that she went through, and how you can kind of overcome those. So the 3 stages real quick. Denial, deliberation, and decision making. So there's a gal named Amanda Ripley. She wrote a book back in 2008, The Unthinkable: Who Survives When Disaster Strikes and Why. And she came up with these 3 phases. And she went through and she did some research with people from 9/11, from some natural disasters, from active shooters, and she kind of took their experiences and learned from that and wrote this book. And it's a really good book. And it has some great stuff in there if you're interested in that kind of thing to read it. But she came up with this: denial, deliberation, and decision making. So denial. So like in the video, she didn't think this was actually a real gun. She thought it was something, a production, a play. Now if we did an exercise real quick, pretend this isn't an active shooter class. This is a finance meeting, so you're all probably half asleep. you know, not really paying attention.
Really?
Theoretically, Dave.
You put
Man. 49% asleep.
Not
The
quite.
numbers matter.
So we hear a loud bang in the hallway. What would be some of our natural reactions to that?
Somebody dropped something.
Somebody dropped some books. Maybe the wind caught the door, right? Shut the door. We wouldn't really think, our first instinct would not be gunfire, right? And then kind of what other people do, we're going to talk about some social proofing and some biases that we come up with on our own that we don't even necessarily know about. But what would be some other things you would look at? You know, you'd start looking around, seeing how everybody else is reacting, right? And you'd be like, oh, well, they're paying attention. Obviously, this is nothing. You know, I'm not going to worry. You'll look at me, I'll be still teaching, talking. So you're like, well, if the instructor's obviously not concerned, then we don't need to concern. Well, that's what we're going to try and get through. You have to get through that denial phase fast. You have to get to the decision making because that's where it's going to come into play for you to prevent anybody from getting hurt. All right. So here we're going to watch another video. So this is social proofing. So this is a researcher who took some time. She looks at how people react in real kind of populated environments. Like you would think if somebody gets mugged or beat up or becomes ill or stabbed on the streets of New York or somewhere like that, you would think people would be quick to help them. But what she found out is this social bias that we don't want to help out if no one else is. We kind of follow the crowd. But as soon as that one person does kind of break that norm, that's when everybody kind of starts to follow. And so that's what we're getting through. You have to get through that denial phase so you actually can move on to that. And the faster you do it, the faster everybody else will around you. So we'll watch this short little video real quick.
Places like this street in New York City. If you were unfortunate enough to be the victim of a crime or taken ill unexpectedly, you might think that surrounded by all these people, someone would intervene. After all, isn't there safety in numbers? Psychologists say no. Research suggests that often a victim is less likely to receive assistance when surrounded by a group rather than a single bystander. When people are in a crowd, it's easier to pass the buck. It's what psychologists call the diffusion of responsibility. Liverpool Street Station in London, a busy thoroughfare for commuters. Unknown to these passers-by, Peter is an actor. As part of an experiment on bystander apathy, he's pretending to be ill. How long before he gets help? Helping would be inconvenient or even risky. He lies there for more than 20 minutes and no one raises an eyebrow.
It's always very distressing to watch situations like this where people are obviously suffering and no one's actually helping them. But what we have here is two conflicting rules. One is the rule we ought to help, and the other is the rule that we ought to do what everybody else is doing. And here you have effectively a group of strangers who are exerting the pressure not to intervene, not to help. And it's very difficult to rebel.
Ruth, another actor, takes Peter's place. How long before she receives help? Minutes later, and 34 people have passed without stopping.
People don't really want to know. They just haven't got the time. Well, they have got the time, they just don't want to get involved.
Unwittingly, these strangers have silently formed a temporary group with a rule: don't get involved. They're afraid to stand out from the crowd and won't take action if no one else does. This woman has clearly spotted Ruth, but she conforms to the rule and does nothing. Watch what happens, though, when someone else helps.
You alright? You alright?
Yes, thank you.
Sure, you're a little bit sleepy, you alright?
She suddenly finds herself in a different group with a new rule: to help.
You want to sit up? You alright, yeah? Sure.
First I thought she was dead. Then I sort of checked to see if she was breathing or not. And I looked around and I couldn't believe that no one had noticed it because there was a bloke that sat there just absorbed in reading a newspaper. This time Peter's dressed as a respectable gentleman. Now that his dress is in keeping with those around him, how long before he's rescued?
How are you today?
6 seconds. She even calls him sir, and suddenly everyone's a good Samaritan.
Do you have some epilepsy?
No.
Why you're lying on the floor in the rain?
Because he's part of the right group. Everyone wants to help.
I would just hate to be in his position of feeling ill, and nobody helped him walking past, so I'd just like to check that he was okay. But I thought it's wet, so he must really be ill because he's going to ruin the suit anyway.
Okay, so how many of you are surprised by the reaction of these people? I mean, that second lady, right? She said, I thought she was dead.
Yeah.
And yet she still did nothing. There's these norms that she just didn't want to get involved, even though she said she thought she was dead, but she was just going to let her sit there because the gentleman next to her who was reading his paper wasn't doing anything. So why should she? So we have to get through this deliberation phase, or this denial phase, that something may be happening. And I love the ending one because it's, well, his suit. You didn't wet. So obviously something was really wrong. Even though those other people, I mean, her neck was twisted and contorted. So we have to get through this social bias. You have to be the one who goes through this phase faster, who thinks, no, something's wrong, something's not right. We know it. We feel when something's not quite right, but then we don't always act on that. And you have to be the first ones to act. I would rather be wrong than dead, especially in situations like this. So just be thinking about that. So next, deliberation. So this is the point where you have to decide what you're going to do next. What's going to be my course of action? What am I going to do? And on the deliberation, this is where pre-planning comes into play. Because when the situation happens, if you've never thought of it, if you've never gone through your head, where am I going to go if something happens here? How can I get out of my office fast or out of this building fast if I need to? When the time comes, it's going to be the wrong time to try and figure that out. And we're going to go over that here in a minute. When your heart rate starts picking up in these stressful situations, there's certain things that go down. You start losing your fine motor skills. Your cognitive ability starts to deteriorate a little bit. You can't really think rational. You start to just kind of get into that mode where I have to either, we've heard it, fight, flight, or freeze, right? And so right now, this class that you guys are taking, this is why the Wenatchee Police Department is so big on this, is now that you guys are having a class, you're going to have that pre-plan. You're going to at least have something when the situation arises, if it arises, you have something to pull back on. Because in the moment, you're not going to have that. You're not going to have time to sit there and think, okay, where are my exits? How can I get out of here? How can I lock my door? That kind of thing. So we're going to go over your brain. So we talk a lot about these in law enforcement. We kind of go over them, and rightfully so, they're labeled code white, yellow, red, gray, black, right? Or condition. So condition white, normal resting heart rate. So most of you probably are in condition white, I would say. You're just here, you're listening. Maybe when we play those videos, you start to pick it up. It might be in the yellow just because you're concerned. It's a hard topic to have. I'm probably in the red because I'm up here speaking in front of you guys. I'm being recorded and all that. So I'm probably a little higher than you. But that's our resting heart rate. When you're at home watching TV or whatever, that's where you're at. You're in condition white. Now condition yellow, your fine motor skills start to deteriorate. So as you move up the chain, simple things like buttoning your shirt, putting a key in a key lock, you start to lose those. And when you speak with law enforcement officers who are involved in deadly shootings, things like that, we talk about fine versus gross motor skills, because once you start elevating your heart rate, you lose those fine motor skills. So our reloading, stuff like that, we do really big it's more gross than fine because we know we can't do that in these situations. So moving up to condition red. So this is where Your complex motor skills really start to deteriorate. But this is actually where you have your peak physical performance in your gross motor skills. So when you're in the red, that's when you're running the fastest you can. That's when you're as strong as you can be. That's kind of where you want to operate in this kind of situation. You really start to be able to handle the situation for your gross motor skills. Condition gray, though, we start to lose some of our cognitive processing. We start to lose some of that to where this is where the pre-plan comes into place. Because when you start getting up in that line, you're not going to be able to sit there and think about these things. It's game on, so to speak. It's time to go, and your brain starts to kind of shut down. When you talk to anybody like law enforcement, military, that kind of thing, when they're involved in these shootings, they'll tell you they didn't hear any rounds fired. They know they fired their weapon, but they didn't hear it. You start to lose your hearing. You kind of start losing that time. It kind of slows down when you hear people talk about, felt like slow motion. I felt like I was kind of moving real slow, and they call it auditorial exclusion when you don't hear the rounds, things like that. Because you start to, all your blood and stuff, you're going to your gross motor skills, to what you have to do to survive that encounter. And so it starts pulling that away from other things. Now, condition black, that's the one you do not want to get in. Condition black is when people freeze. That's when they have sensory overloaded, their brain is overloaded, and they are done. They physically cannot do anything. They can't think, they can't operate, they're just out of the game. And that's where we want to avoid in situations like this. You cannot freeze. And we'll talk about some people who decided to play dead or kind of not do anything. And that, when you're here, you kind of lose that choice, because you've just been overloaded to the point where you're just so stressed and your heart rate's so high out there, you just can't physically do anything. So you want to make sure you stay out of condition black as best as you can. So, how many of you heard of the human brain and the lizard brain? So that's a common thing we kind of talk about. So with the deliberation phase, your human brain, we're reflective, we're thinking logically, you can kind of come up with things, you're rational. It's kind of a slow thinking process. You get to your lizard brain, now it's more you're kind of reacting to situations. It's not necessarily your slow thinking kind of. And so that's where we kind of get into this in these situations, and you have that. Let's see if there it is. The fight, flight, or freeze, right? And we really want to stay away from the freeze one. We don't want to be into there. Fight or flight, those are good things for survival, and we're going to give you some tools today to kind of how you can effectively do those things without freezing, because you do not want to freeze. That's when people start to get hurt. And that's with that shift that we've learned. You have to do something. You guys do not have to be victims in situations like this. How law enforcement used to just kind of contain, wait for SWAT, and civilians would just hunker down and wait for police. That was kind of our mindset. And now we're shifting. We're giving the tools. We're telling you do not have to be a victim. You can react. You can do stuff. It's your decision to go home that day. Okay, so... Alright, so this was a club fire back in February 20 of 2003. I don't know if anybody remembers this, in Rhode Island. A lot of people perished that day. So this is a club. They had band playing up here on stage with some pyrotechnics, which is always good in a small building. The approximate was 350 people were in this building, with, I think they were zoned for just about 304. So obviously it was overcrowding. What we're going to look at, so here's the main entrance where you kind of walk in, nice little hallway, and then into the main dance floor area. But that was the main entrance. That's where everybody kind of went in. So that's what everybody knows, right? You have an exit here off the minibar, exit there off the kitchen. Probably not a lot of people know about that one except for staff. We got an exit back here, 4 back there by the stage. From the reports was bouncers were actually keeping people from going out of that door. That was solely for the band. And they were actually kind of keeping people out of there until they could clear the band out. You notice here we've got several big windows right here by the front door, and then this is a whole row of windows there, right off kind of the pool table area. You think about secondary exits, right? Just because it's a window doesn't mean you can't go out of it. So how many of you know where your exits are in here? So point, without looking around, because I know you guys, point to the one exit that you know of that you would go out of right now if we said, you know, there's a fire. That's pretty good. You guys are going there. You guys are going there. That's good so we don't get congested. So once you're out in that hallway, though, where are you going?
Stairs.
Downstairs. You're going to take stairs down. What if the fire's down on the first floor? In the stairwell. Where are you going to go?
Backstairs.
Backstairs. There you go. Right. So this is kind of things you got to be thinking about. So how many of you, if there was a fire, you couldn't get out, I know one of your offices has a door to the balcony. If you could not get out and the fire was right outside your door, how many of you would jump from the second story? It's crazy, right? But I would rather have broken legs than be dead, right? Yep. I mean, you got to think about these things. These are things, windows are great. I mean, I don't, you know, some of these safety glasses might be a little hard, but chairs, things like that, secondary exits are always good to think about. Just because it's a window doesn't mean you can't go out of it. So we're going to watch another video. Now this one's got some human suffering in it. So this one's kind of got a lot with just the fire. It's somebody who was actually inside, filmed it as it started, and then ended up getting out and he continued to film. And so you kind of get to see the progression. And this is where we're going to go through the denial phase. You'll actually see it really well in this video. So the band's playing, they're shooting off the real fireworks. Apparently what they found out later was the sound dampening material they put inside this club was highly flammable, which worked perfect to where the band was and the fire. And so you'll see that everybody's dancing, the fire, you'll see the room kind of start to fill with smoke. Those would be keys that something's wrong, right? Yeah. And you'll notice though, people are still, the band's still playing, people are still dancing, and then there will be one guy who starts to yell, "Fire, get out." As soon as he starts, then everybody starts. So you want to be that guy. One thing I do like to point out in this video, watch the cameraman as well. Don't be this guy. Because the cameraman knew something was wrong, started to go to the exit while filming, didn't tell anybody else. It wasn't until the other guy started yelling. He knew, you'll watch him, as soon as it goes, he'll actually start backing up towards the exit, filming everything else, and then you'll see the one guy start yelling. If you know something's wrong, put your cell phone away, let everybody know, and get out. So you can see the fire starting up on the roof. Right there. Now watch the cameraman, he's already backing out. Band's still playing, people are still dancing. And right here you'll see the guy, he's pointing. He's saying, "Get out."
Did people actually go out the windows?
You'll see the one was broken, by the pool tables, and then on the opposite side somebody went out, but I think only 1 or 2 people thought. There you heard one crash. I think they were working on these ones on the side here, trying to get people out. All right. So all these circles are people who died in the fire.
Oh my goodness.
So if you look by the main entrance, 31 bodies were found after the fire. Why do you think there's so many at the main entrance? That's what they knew, right? There was no pre-planning. Everybody went in that way, so that's the way they knew to get out. That's why it's important when you go into a movie theater, a restaurant, at least think of another exit out, because you know everybody else is going for that main entrance. You know, you have the big windows here and here, that exit by the bar, a few people died there. Some in the back here, it's kind of hard. It would be hard if you didn't know the kitchen exit was there. I think it'd be safe to assume in most kitchens there will be an exit where they bring food in, things like that. So be thinking about these things. A few people here, you see these guys, they were probably in line to go around and ended up just coming back and waiting. Big window here by the pool table like we talked about. So you got to be thinking ahead of these things, because in that moment, once everybody started to panic, people started getting pushed, shoved, they're just going to the main exit that they know of. So you want to think ahead. You want to come up with some secondary options, especially in an office building where you're on multiple floors. You know, if I can't get out that way, what if I go this way? What if both of them are blocked? How can I secure myself in my office if it's not a fire? Or how can I get out if it is a fire? So here's the building after it was all done.
Oh my goodness.
So that was the next day. So deliberation. During this phase, you really have to calm down. I know that's hard to say, and it's not very easy to do, but you need to calm down. You have to calm yourself down so you can start to think about creating a plan. Because remember, the higher you get up with your heart rate, the harder it is to do that. Combat breathing, that's something they train. I did that in the Army. They trained us in that when we went overseas. It's something you learn as a police officer, and that's something you can do. Breathe in through your mouth, out through your nose, and you're holding it for about 2 seconds therein. And that's been shown to lower your heart rate, allow you to start thinking more clearly, to come up with a decisive plan of action. So here, this is a good one to talk about. Shift your emotion. What do you guys think I mean when I have that up there? Shift your emotion.
Go into panic mode.
Can't go into panic mode. If there was an active shooter in this building, what is your first reaction? How would you think most people feel?
Fear.
Fear, right? What kind of position, what posture do we take when we're scared?
Cower.
We kind of cower away, right? We kind of hide. It overwhelms us to where we can't really do anything. So what we mean with shift your emotion is I'm telling you, as a police officer, this is what I want you to do. I want you to become angry. This person is trying to take you away from your family, your grandkids, your vacations, your homes, everything that's dear to you, that person's trying to take away from you. Don't let him. Don't be scared. Get angry. He's going to trying to ruin you're not going to be there for your grandkids. You're not going to be there for your kids, for their graduations or weddings. And that should make you mad. So we have to shift that emotion to anger. So then when we do have to act, we're decisive, and you have to be violent, unfortunately. Violence of action to overtake that person. And if we're going to be scared, everybody's scared, but when we become angry like that, that gives us the ability to fight back and not just cower away. So that's what we mean when we mean shift your emotion. In situations such as an active shooter, become angry, because that person is trying to take you away from your family. Mental scripting, we've been talking about this whole presentation, and we'll continue to talk about it. Have a plan. Think about what you're going to do in these situations. When I was in Iraq, we would call it, we'd just battle plan. We'd think, while I was sitting there driving, I would think, okay, if we get hit on this side, what am I going to do? And that's just something you can do as law enforcement. We do it all the time. As I'm pulling somebody over, I'm thinking, okay, if I walk up to this car and he pulls a gun and shoots, how do I react? Do I advance? Do I retreat? Do I move to the side? Things like that. So in that moment, once it happens, you've kind of already at least have somewhat of a plan. It might not work out the way you planned in your head, but you have something to where you can react. So that's part of this mental scripting. You have to be thinking about it. And this class is giving you guys a leg up on everybody else because now you've thought about it. Just a little bit that you have will prove very beneficial for you in the future. So script and practice. One thing we've done as active shooter, we actually went to the CWH hospital over in Wenatchee, and they actually, with some nurses, did an active shooter situation. We had a wing that they're demolishing, brought in a guy with a cap gun, some nurses and some patients, and then they ran through it. What can they do in those situations when they're in the main room? If they're in a patient's room, how do you control the patient and you? So these things are good, not only to think about in your head, but put a plan into the action. We walked around the building, and it seems like, you guys are already there, which is great. They're saying, well, there's no lock on this door out here. We're going to change that. See, it's those things, when you start to put this into practice, you start noticing kind of those vulnerable areas. And then you get to fix those before this incident happens. And then the final stage is your decision movement. So, decisive movement. So once you've deliberated, you made a decision what you're going to do, commit and do it. Whatever it is, you have to do something. And we're going to talk about, you've heard, what we're doing is avoid, deny, defend. That's going to be our steps that we're going to take in an active shooter situation. And I have handouts for everybody at the end. We'll hand them out if you'd like them. And that's what we're going to talk about. So when you've made a decision, if you're going to avoid them, you're going to deny them, or you're going to defend them. Defend against them. Once you've made that decision, you have to do it. Commit to it 100%, because if you hesitate, that's when things are going to go wrong. So you have to get there. So once you get here, this is where you want to get. In any situation, you want to get through the denial, you want to deliberate, make a decision, and then you want to act on it. Any questions so far on all that? We're going to kind of get into what an active shooter is, and that kind of help define them. You'll notice during all these, there's a bunch of different, we've had scenarios with active shooters and things. It's practice for us that we don't name the actual shooter. A lot of those guys why they do some of the things they do is for notoriety. So alert takes this stance, and we take this stance that we don't name them by name. They're just going to be the shooter at this point, because we don't want to give them that recognition that they seek. So here's a definition for you. So an active shooter event involves one or more persons engaging in killing or attempting to kill multiple people in an area occupied by multiple unrelated individuals. So we call this target of opportunity, right? This is a person whose sole mission is to do as much harm to as many people before either he commits suicide or is taken out by law enforcement. That's their goal. So the shooter. Based on all the information that they've gathered, there's no profile for an active shooter. They come from all over. They're very different. The only thing I think that's really kind of a general consensus is there's not a lot of females that do active shooter. They happen to be more males. But it's not the case always. Like San Bernardino, there was a male and a female. So you have to be thinking, it's not just one type. We can't just stereotype one type of person. It could be anyone, and that's part of the scary part about active shooters is it's hard to plan for that. So they have the avenger mindset. Somebody wronged me, so I'm going to go wrong as many people as I can. they have lost their connection between their actions. They don't care. All they know is what they want to do. They're focused on it. The human suffering around them, they've detached themselves from that reality. All they know is they want to cause as much harm as possible. Most of them don't expect to survive. A lot of these active shooters commit suicide as soon as law enforcement arrive on scene, or law enforcement attempts to help end the situation. And most of them don't. They don't expect to get out of there. So if that shooter doesn't expect to get out of there, you can probably expect not to, if you try to talk them down, it's not going to really work. And we're going to watch a video where that doesn't work. And so you can't think that. When they're there, they know they're going to die that day. So you have to act. You can't just sit there and try and negotiate with them. And some broadcasts there, social media, things like that we saw. Don't really call the newspaper or the news reporter who was shot on air. It's not really an active shooter, but there's things, they want to make a statement. They want to live on beyond the shooting. So be aware of that. So the number of deaths we figured out, it comes down to how quickly do police respond. Most of the time, as soon as law enforcement's on scene, the suspects they're going to kill themselves or try and confront law enforcement so they can shoot them. Suicide by cop. You can expect in Wenatchee, in this area, we're actually pretty fortunate. It's not overly big. Normal response time for law enforcement is about 3 minutes is kind of the average. So you got to think that's 3 minutes when you're all on your own from the first 911 call. How the 911 works is usually you'll call in, there will be a call taker, and then they're typing what you're saying. It gets sent over to the dispatcher who dispatches it to the department, whoever it is, Chelan County, East Wenatchee, Wenatchee. So there's that time delay just from there. I mean, Rivercom does a great job. I don't know if you know, we outsource our dispatch. They're called Rivercom. It's a private company, but they're really good at what they do. And they're in it's a big room, but they can kind of communicate with each other just by talking. So if they know it's coming, a lot of times they'll tell us on the radio before it even shows up on the screen. They're saying, hey, we're taking a call of a physical fight, or, we're getting an active shooter call at the high school. And they'll try and get us there as fast as they can, but no, there's going to be a delay in law enforcement response. Number of deaths, it's going to be on target availability. So if we're able to empty out the hallway and he's in a school, there's not going to be a lot of targets for him, right? He's going to try and find as many targets as he can, lunchroom, stuff like that. So if we're able to deny him access into our classrooms or into our office building, I mean, if you locked him out in the hallway and everybody's kind of in their office area, it's going to be real hard for him to execute his plan the way he wants. So just be aware of that. Like I said, 3 minutes response time for law enforcement. Great thing about, I kind of like to talk about this a little later, but I'll bring it up now since I'm thinking about it. The great thing about the Wenatchee Valley is if we ever have an active shooter event, we're very lucky because not only if it's, say, here in this building or in Wenatchee, you'll have Wenatchee police, right? You'll have Chelan County. East Wenatchee is going to come over. Douglas County is going to come over. State Patrol is going to show up. We have so many agencies within a short amount of space that they're all coming. An active shooter call is pretty much all hands on deck. You're going to have the sheriff, you're going to have the undersheriff, you're going to have the chief of police, you're going to have the captains, you're going to have detectives. Everybody's going to be there. And that's one of the things I really like about this valley is we're so close and we have so many other agencies that are willing to help out that we're going to have a large law enforcement presence. And that's really good for you guys just to understand that we're going to come and we're going to come in force. All right, so here's the nuts and bolts for you guys. All right. It's really funny. Our captain teaches this class, and he always forgets that's there. He jumps every time. Okay, denial. So don't deny. If you hear gunshots, One, we start to think somebody dropped a folder, somebody, tipped a chair over, slammed a door. Repetitive sounds it's going to sound different in a building. It's going to be muffled. You might not hear the brass hitting the floor if it's carpet or if they're, a couple doors down. But what's going to be repetitive? It's going to be, start thinking somebody's shooting when it's a repetitive, steady bangs like that. If you're familiar with shotguns, they make that, if it's a pump shotgun, you're going to have that sound. So you got to get through that denial phase and move on to deliberation and decision making. So we're going to watch another video. This is Krista Anderson. So she was in room 211 during the Virginia Tech shooting. How many of you remember that one?
Oh, yeah.
That was one of the deadliest active shooters incidents in the country. And she's going to talk about her experience where she actually played dead. That was what they knew. And that's what she did. And it worked out to the point where she survived, but it didn't work out because she was shot multiple times. Even after playing dead, she was still shot multiple times. So that's what we're trying to avoid. You don't want to play dead. You have to get through that. And you have to make a decision. So we'll listen to this real quick. Listen to her story.
So this is pretty important. This day, I ended up sitting in exactly the same seat I always did, in the back right-hand corner on the right side of the class. What we don't know is at this time, someone is downstairs and he's chaining all 3 doors shut. There's supposed to be desks there. All you guys can see. We heard the first gunshots outside in the hallway, and my teacher, she opened the door. She immediately slammed it and she said, "Call 911." And the second that door closed, he walks in. He walks in shooting. There's absolutely no time. He goes to the other side of the classroom by the windows. He's holding 2 guns. He doesn't say anything. He just starts going down the rows of people. It's very quick. It's very loud. It's very scary. We had these very shitty desks. I get on the floor. I put my knees under the chair, my stomach on the seat, hands overhead, eyes are closed. As the shots keep going, and it's, like I said, very loud, I can tell it's getting closer and closer. And I'm telling myself, brace yourself, your turn is going to come. Now, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't think I was going to get shot, but I knew that something really serious was going on. And I knew for whatever reason that I should just play dead. He shoots me. The first time's in the back. And you'd be surprised, getting shot doesn't hurt that much because shock overtakes you. But it starts to burn and really kind of seep in, and that's when it gets really uncomfortable. It's not pleasant. He leaves the first time, he goes across the hall, and while he's gone, cell phones are ringing, people are coughing, and the smell of gunpowder has completely filled the room. Gunpowder is this really sticky, pungent, warm smell, and it just makes you very, very thirsty. He comes back. Now, this time, the shooting is more intermittent. It's slower because he's looking to see who's alive. I remember telling myself to stop breathing because I can feel my stomach hitting that chair, and I'm saying, stop, he can see that you're alive. The third and final time, he killed himself in front of our classroom. When the police broke in, the first thing the guy said was, "We have a lot of blacks in here." I didn't know what that meant, but when police sweep a crime scene, they have 30 seconds. If you're red, you're critically injured. If you're yellow, you'll live. Black means you're dead. In 9 minutes, he killed 11 of my classmates and my teacher. 32 people lost their lives that day.
All right. So playing dead. Did it really work out for her? Not really. I mean, she was lucky. She was one of the ones who survived the shooting. But she was shot 3 times. She was shot once, he left, came back, shot again, left, came back, and shot one more time. She was trying to play dead. I think she describes her desk very well. And we've seen those desks. I know I grew up with those desks. They're not bulletproof. I mean, when she hit, you could probably still see most of her body. There was no, and she talks about, opened the door, the teacher opened the door, saw him shut the door, and then he walked in. There was no time, and that's what we're here to talk about. Because you're right, they didn't have time to try and deny him access. They didn't have time to kind of avoid him, go out a window. He was already in there. And this is a decision you have to make. Are you going to defend yourself? But if he's coming in like that right after, you have two options. You're either going to play dead, possibly be dead, I mean, you're going to get shot, or you can try and defend against him. Try and minimize the casualties in that room, possibly save your own life. So you have to be thinking about these things. Playing dead is just not what we recommend in these situations. This guy's posture, what kind of posture does that look like to you guys?
Praying.
It's praying. So when we say that shift of emotion, right? He's scared. That's a position, he's just scared. He's not angry. He's just trying to write it out. Does that desk look bulletproof?
No.
Oh, it's not. So he may be able to hide for a minute, but if that guy's walking around and he sees you, now you're just going to get shot sitting there instead of trying to do something about it. So be thinking about that as we go through this presentation. All right. Deliberation. Avoid, deny, defend. Some of you may have heard, run, hide, fight. Same kind of principle. This is the one that we train. Avoid, deny, defend. So we're going to go through each one of these piece by piece. We're going to talk about them, and then at the end, the video goes through all these steps, and it shows you some practical ways to do these. That's the only video that starts automatically. So this is a Panama City School Board meeting that's going on. Some of you may have seen this. This is actually a news company that's filming it, and they actually filmed the whole thing while it was going on after they actually posted it online. So it got out. But this is one where the situation, he comes in disgruntled. His wife was fired. He's not very happy with the school board. And you'll see him. There's multiple times. Watch the shooter. Watch him if he turns his back to him. Try and think of how you would get out of that situation. Unfortunately, the superintendent here, he tries to negotiate, and you'll hear him. The shooter, he says, "I'm going to die today." You're not going to talk him out of what he's planning. He's already got his plan. He knows he's going to die that day. So be thinking. Watch the shooter, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
It's part of the plan we have, the workshop we're going to have following this meeting. This will be the first step in that whole process. Everybody in this room.
Oh, that wasn't supposed to be that. Okay. Tried to pause it. So what did he say? Everybody in this room, go. Except for the men on the bench. He tells them they have to stay. And unfortunately, sorry, I'll have to play from the beginning again. So watch some people's responses. There's several up here that are sitting, and even the lady down right on the desk. What do? They dive underneath their desk real quick. Or under the chair. If somebody tells you to get out, run. Because they end up, luckily he lets them kind of get up and they kind of get their senses and they get up and leave. But be ready for that. They probably didn't have a plan. They saw a weapon, they dove. Initially that may be good if he's just starting to shoot. But if he tells you, everybody get out except, try and get out as fast as you can.
And for the technology that knows part of everybody in this room.
Watch them. Right here. has to talk. Wait, wait.
He's so weird now, though.
Just said, I'm going to die today.
Can we talk a little bit? Just only a little bit. Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question? Because I really don't know what you're talking about, to be very honest with you. I have no idea what you're talking about. She was fired. I believe that when she said that, but what did she do?
So he's actually looking up here. He's paying attention to, it was a security guard who was unarmed at the time. And he's talking to him. What could these guys be doing? He's not paying attention to them at all. He even turns his back, right? He starts to walk away. He thinks about it, but you have to act. You have to act.
Sir, I don't know what you ran to stop taxes, okay? You said we don't need no taxes. No, there's plenty of money. Then as soon as you got in the school system, then you turned around and said, oh, now we need.
It's hard to hear, but you can hear in the background police sirens.
We need to have success.
They're starting to get there.
I campaigned on that. Yes, I did. You can look at the material. I said from the beginning, have success tax is the most equitable way because everybody pays.
Do you think he's going to change his mind at this point?
No.
He's not. No matter what he says, he's not going to change his
I
mind.
don't want anybody to, just listen to me for a minute. I don't want anybody to get hurt, and I've got a feeling that what you want is the cops come in and kill you because you're mad, because you said you're going to die anyway. Oh, why? This isn't worth it. This is a problem. Please don't. Please don't. Please. All I'm going
Okay, so good news. The gunman didn't hit one single person out of all those shots. The video doesn't go on to show, but he actually, after he was shot, he shoots a couple more towards the officer, and then he actually turns the gun on himself. Alright, so avoid. The first step, leave. Know where your exits are. Get out of there. When he tells you, you leave. Get out of there. Don't hang around. I know this topic comes up, if you're a responsibly armed citizen, if that's a decision you have to make, and if you're ready to do that, then, do what you have to do to save those around you, to save yourself. But if he's letting you get out, or you have that avenue, if his back's turned, the guy's on the side, do something. Because don't just sit there, because what happens? You're going to get shot, right? So know where your exits are until you've clearly, if you've gotten out of the building, then until you're safe, then call 911, okay? We don't want you to put yourselves in harm's way to call 911. Wait till you're safe, get on the phone. Somebody brought it up, and I failed to mention this earlier. You notice the lady, she grabbed her book bag, grabbed her laptop. In that book that Ashley Ripley wrote, she talks about talks to a couple of survivors from 9/11. After the first plane crashed into their building, they were turning off their computer, they were grabbing all their paperwork, their folders, putting them in their book bags, and they were leaving, like they were leaving at the end of the day, after the plane had already crashed. That's a denial. You don't think what is actually happening. You kind of go into that, your normalcy. You try and break that up. So no, don't grab your stuff. Get out of there, okay? Try and leave. Consider secondary exits. We've talked about this. Windows. Second story, you're probably going to break something. But I'd rather break something than die.
Yes.
So know that. Be thinking about that. Have a plan in case your exits are blocked. What can I do? How can I get out of here? Don't just think of doors. Think of other things, okay? Even Oh, you don't have that. Sorry, it's in my notes. They even say breaking through drywall. If you know your building well enough, or like a residential drywall, you could try and squeak through some studs. If you have something to kind of break that down, if you lock yourself in your office, but you think he's coming and you're trying to get out, think about that. What can you use to break down the wall if you have to? What are your secondary exits? Think outside the box. Try to get beyond just a door. Denial. So you guys actually have blinds on your windows? Most of them, not all of them?
Actually, this one is on the exterior right now, and we're moving it to the inside of the room.
Right. See, these are things, having that scripting where you probably wouldn't have thought of that when they built the building. They thought, well, we'll put them on there just to have them. The outside. Schools. They have these nice windows, right? Sergeant Houston, his wife is a school teacher at Washington Elementary. What they did, and my sister actually teaches in Oregon, and I talked to her about this, and they set it up too. They have a piece of paper that's the exact length with magnets, and it's just off to the side so the window's open when they need it. But in case of a situation like this, she can cover it up, lock the doors, turn off the lights. So that's something to think about. If you don't have blinds, what else can you do to block that window? Sorry, go ahead.
And this might be a really good time to mention that our exterior offices all are numbered and have locks on the doors. And the reason for that is, and the numbers are inside the room and outside, the locks are on there so that you will have a place to go, that you can shut the lights off and lock the door. And the numbers are in there so that if you did call, you would be able to say, I am in room 21 or 22, meaning second floor, room 1, second floor, room 2. So notice those on each of the floors, and those rooms do have locks on them.
Perfect. Yeah, and we've been doing this for almost a year now. Me and the captain and the Officer Battis have been going around, and I've seen schools, stuff like that, and this is probably one of the best buildings I've seen that's set up to help you succeed in these situations. So know that, but you have to know what these devices are, how they can help you, and we're going to talk about this. So shutting your door, covering your window, figuring out how you can do that. An active shooter, like we said, he's there to inflict as much damage to as many people as fast as possible before law enforcement shows up. If you're able to lock your door, shut your window, and cover it so he can't even see in, he may jiggle the door a little bit, see if he can break in, but he's not going to hang out there all day because he doesn't even know if anybody's in there, right? He's going to be looking for the people in the hallways or the doors that weren't locked. So these are great. We're going to go over the Virginia Tech shooting where being able to deny access into the room saved lives. That's a big one. So be ready for that. Know where know how to cover the windows, shut off the lights, that kind of thing. Know how to lock. Go ahead.
So I know they toured the building, our entry's all glass, right?
Right.
And so what's the opinion about how that's would be dealt with?
For entryways, it's hard. I mean, that's because, the building still has, aesthetically pleasing to people and stuff like that. But, so that one's just kind of, you have to know, so I don't know if that's a receptionist or whoever's right there, you have to be thinking, okay, I'm vulnerable here. I've got a lot of windows. But that's not, you lock the door, he still has to get in. They still have to break, and you shoot these windows, stuff like that, they don't necessarily just fall like in the movies. There may be a hole. He's going to have to kind of still break through. So that gives you time. Know where the closest office is so you can lock yourself in. Know your quickest secondary exit. And that's where these game planning come up.
We actually have a panic button in the reception area that when Shay presses that, it sends an alert out to a list of people, and a light goes off in the back area. We also talked about the Aspen room door that is all glass, putting a film on it or looking at making that so that you can't see through it as well.
Right.
Yes. I have actually a question for you, Suzanne.
Yeah.
I know that when we go on walks in the morning, one of the doors is always locked at the main entrance, like for us to get out, so you have to go through the other one?
Yes.
Is there something that we would, is that locked by a key, or is there something that we can undo if there was an active shooter who happened to come in through the opposite side of the building and people were on a walk, or even the front staff trying to get out, trying to go through one door and have to stop and then go through the other one. I mean, what about that door? Or, I guess, like, why do we have that door locked, that one side locked? Do we know?
I don't know why it is locked. It has been locked since we moved. I think there's a little tab inside the door. If I remember right, it locks it
Is
on.
there? And so we could easily, I guess I never noticed that, I just know it doesn't move, so I use the other one.
I know it doesn't move, and then I still try to go through it.
So in a panic, that's my point.
Is Shay paying attention to me?
I see nothing.
Well, and that's something great you can bring up, and now that you're aware, and that's what we like about this training. I mean, now that's something you could follow up with her later and figure out why it is locked and not locked. Yes, ma'am.
Are you doing these trainings at schools? I'm just curious if this is information.
I've done the college with just professors and faculty, and we've done school teachers some. We haven't done students or anything like that, but we are. This is something the department does for free. We don't charge anybody anything, and we will do schools, faculty.
And I'll throw out, I know that there's a couple of Grant County Sheriff's officers and somebody from the Ephrata Police Department that have been doing training down in Grant County with some of the schools.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's something we have to address, and a lot of law enforcement agencies are starting to catch up here in the area. So, deny, another step of that. Barricade. Heavier the better, more the better. Door stops, they're going to work. One thing I really like about this building that I noticed when we were getting a tour, almost all the doors, minus this one I just noticed, they open on the inside. That is great. Can't really barricade a door that opens outwards, right? You can slow them down, you can kind of put things in his way, but that's really great because that gives you an opportunity. Put your desk there, throw boxes, whatever you can after you lock it, help barricade that door. And inward opening door, if you're in that office, that's just going to help you out a lot better. So that's really good that all these offices open inside the office. You guys can really secure yourselves in your offices if you need to. Also, we'll see in the video, if you can see the door hinge, there's a lot of those around here. I know they make some locks that actually slide over them, just kind of a square tubing of metal. But also we'll see in the video, just a strap, using your belt, your laptop bag strap, any kind of cord, electrical cord, if you wrap it around where it hinges right there, that's a pretty good deterrent to opening that door. If you can't lock it, or just an extra measure once you lock it, that's a great way of securing those doors. So that's just the little things you got to be thinking about. How can I secure myself? Sarge?
Keep in mind that the shooters are opportunists. So if you, like that door right there, for instance, it swings outward, so he could come into it. You think you can't block it. But if you push every one of these desks against that door, he's going to swing into that, and he can't push those out. He's going to move on to the next office, and he's going to avoid it. They're opportunists. They're not going to, unless they're going after a specific target, they're going to just move on to the next easy target. So keep that in mind as they're moving through.
Yep, be prepared. Outward doors, grabbing a belt, something, get away from the door in case they start shooting through the door, and doing your best, like the sergeant said. They're not going to hang around and try and defeat a locked door. They've got other things to do. They're going to try to inflict as much as they can. And sitting there messing with your door is not going to be top on their list. So be thinking about that. So here we're going to go into, this is Virginia Tech. So these are percentages, not actual numbers. So room 206 here. No action was taken, okay? This was the play dead, the hide and hope kind of mindset. The shooter started in this room. He walked in and just started killing people. Like she said, he just went down the rows of chairs. Why? Because everybody was just sitting there, right? Everybody was playing dead under their desks. They were easy targets. Do you think it's harder to hit a moving target or a still target? Moving target, right? So just be thinking about that. He left, returned later to shoot more people. So if you look here, 92% of that classroom was shot. 77% in that classroom died that day. 211, failed denial. So this is the one that the girl was talking about. Teacher heard shots, told the students to call 911s. They attempted to block the door with desks. The shooter pushed his way in, shot the professor, and then walked down the aisle, killing the students who were hiding under their desks. The shooter returned later, shot more students. 100% was shot in that classroom. Everybody was shot in that classroom. 67% died that day. 207, late denial. This was the second room attacked. The shooter walked in, shot several students and the teacher. He then walked down the aisle shooting students. The shooter left. The shooter attempted to return for his second round. Students used their bodies to barricade the door, and the shooter got the door open 1 inch and attempted to fire several shots through the door. But no one was hit during that second volley of fire. So when he first made entry, 85% were shot and only 38% were killed. So you kind of see, when you get that denial, you don't have to always defend. This denial, the avoid, it helps work out in your advantage. So room 204, this one failed denial, and then they did a successful avoid. I really can't pronounce this guy's name. So you may have heard about the professor there. Deliberation, I believe. He was actually a Holocaust survivor teaching there at Virginia Tech. They heard the shooting. The professor held the door shut, told his students to get out of the window. The shooter then, as he was holding the door, the shooter started shooting through the door, striking the professor several times. He continued to hold the door, telling his students, giving them time to get out. 10 students were able to make it out of the room before the shooter entered the room. 2 more were shot as they were trying to get out. They both survived. And out of the 6 who did not get out, 4 were shot and only 1 died. Unfortunately, the professor did die. He sacrificed himself for his students. And that time given allowed them to get out. So 36% were shot, 14 killed. Room 205. This was a successful denial. Students heard the shots. They used their feet to keep the door closed. The shooter pushed, tried to fire through the door. He never gained entry. No one was shot. No one died.
Their feet, so did they lay down and stick their feet under?
I'm assuming what they did, were kind of laid back and just pushed as hard as they could on there, just in case he did fire through the door. They weren't standing there, and they were able to keep him out. Because he probably was pushing, they were able to keep him after he shot, and it didn't loosen, and then he just moved on to the next rooms. Because like we said, that's what they want to do. They want to inflict as much damage as they can. And the final, defending. So this stage, this is really a decision you have to make. This is not a decision I can make for you. It's not a decision your coworker can make for you. This is a decision you have to make. What are you going to do if you cannot avoid, if you cannot deny, and he comes into that room and you're there? What are you going to do to help to protect yourself and those around you? So position yourself. If you do decide to defend yourself against a shooter, position yourself along the wall by the door. So if he's looking in, he can't see you. Make a plan. If there's more than one of you in there, say, hey, grab those scissors, grab that stapler. As soon as he comes in, I'm grabbing the arm where the gun is, just hit him. And what we want you to do, you have a legal right to defend yourself. Whoever the shooter is, he has stated his intentions. He is there to kill people. You have the right to defend yourself and others. You hit that subject until he is unconscious. Because if he's still awake, he can still grab his firearm, he can still overpower you, and he can still shoot. So if you made that decision, do it with a vengeance. Remember, be angry. He's trying to take you away. And hit him till he's unconscious. Do not allow him to take any more lives. We talk about, I don't feel real comfortable with the whole grab the gun thing, because, I don't know, pistols especially are real small, and if you're trying to grab this, I can kind of move it away from you and go for that arm if you can. Bigger the better. you're more likely to grab onto that. So I would, if he comes in with it out like that, grab that whole arm, try to control that arm as best you can. Have somebody else see if they can grab the gun once you've controlled it, or start hitting him, doing whatever you can, eye gouges. There is no fair fight in these situations. You do what you have to do to survive, okay? So be aware of that. Pulling hair, if it's a male, kick him in the groin, gouge his eyes. You have a right to defend yourself, and you do not have to fight fair. You fight to win because this is a fight for your life. And that's going to determine whether you go home. Okay? So be ready, be thinking about these things. One key point we'll touch on real quick. Remember, if you are shot, you are not dead. You are not dead until you're dead. Okay? If you get shot and you're still there, you're still able to move, you fight. You get through it. We teach our officers this. You go through a door, you get shot, you keep going. Just because you're shot does not mean you're done. This officer is a great testament to that. This is Lieutenant Brian Murphy. He responded to an active shooter in a church. He decided that day that he wasn't going to die. This lieutenant was shot 15 times and still survived. Just because you're shot doesn't mean you're dead. You can see his scars. He wasn't just hit in the arms and the legs. He was shot 15 times throughout his entire body. And he survived and was able to see his family afterwards. So remember that. All right. So you are not helpless, all right? We've talked about this. With the avoid, deny, defend, from Columbine, we've made that shift. Law enforcement have made a shift. You guys have made the shift. You do not have to be victims. You do not have to be helpless. In those, however long it takes law enforcement to get there, for you to go home that day, you have to figure out what you're going to do and you have to act. And when you act, do it. Don't hesitate. Make a decision. Act upon it. If you do decide to defend yourself, do violence of action. Because that's what he's doing to you, okay? It sounds kind of bad, but that's what you have to do. You have to overwhelm them and you have to take them down, okay? So, any questions on that? That's kind of our main part here. We're going to go into when police arrive on scene. Any questions? All right. So when police arrive, we're gonna watch the rest of the video of that school board shooting. We want you to pay attention. Listen to what the officers are saying as they come into the room. Kind of look at what they're wearing, what kind of weapons they have, what their dress looks like, and what commands they're giving, that kind of thing. Okay. Oh, come on. Okay. Alright, so what are some things you heard the law enforcement saying?
On the ground.
Get on the ground. Let me see your hands. That kind of thing. If you actually listen real carefully, and I know it's kind of hard to hear, the gentleman in the red there, as he's coming in, he's saying, get on the ground, please. Let me see your hands. He says please several times. We do not want to mistake you for the bad guy. We do not know all the information. Them going into that situation, all they had was there was one gunman, a gentleman with a weapon, that's all. They may have had, he was a larger white male with a blue shirt. Maybe. The information is going to be coming from different people. If it's an active shooter, you're going to have, somebody may have just heard shots. They're going to hide, they're going to call and say, I just heard firing. I don't know what he looks like. I don't know how many guns. We may get one person who calls in and says he's wearing a purple shirt. Another guy who calls in and says he's wearing a black shirt. So now we're thinking, well, maybe there's two. We don't know. We're coming in with very limited information. So be prepared. Follow commands, okay? One of the big things is nothing in your hands, right? Please do not be doing this. Please. Everything out of your hands. Cell phones out of your hands. If you defended yourself, you took him to the ground and you hit him till he was unconscious, and you had a stapler or something in your hand. As soon as you know, we're going to be announcing, you're going to know we're there. And you heard him before you could see him around the corner. Police coming in, show me your hands, get on the ground. Drop whatever it is you have in your hand, follow commands. It's going to be the biggest thing, okay? If you're a responsibly armed citizen, if you made the decision to engage that suspect, and you know, hold him, that's fine. If you want to cover him, make sure he doesn't get back up. As soon as you hear police coming in, or you think we're coming in, holster, get it out of your hands, because we don't know. And if you do have a weapon on you, I like to add this, be prepared to be handcuffed. We don't necessarily think we're not going to treat, you. Caveat, sorry, I'm having the conversation in my head. We went to the college. One of the concerns they had was we're going to treat them all like bad guys. Unfortunately, you will get yelled at. We're going to ask you to get on the ground. If you have a weapon, you'll probably get handcuffed. We're going to figure it out, and we'll take you out of handcuffs, say thank you, and we'll let you on your way, okay? It's not that we all think you're bad guys, it's just we don't know. And we have to make it safe for us and safe for everybody else. So be prepared, get everything out of your hands, follow commands. One of the things I like to show up, so if you see this guy, he's got a nice red shirt, probably some khakis. This guy, I don't even think he has a gun in his hand, but he's walking in. He's got a blue polo, some khaki pants, you have a uniformed officer there. This is not my normal attire. I wear a regular patrol uniform. Some of our other guys, detectives you'll see with polos, our PROAC guys will be dressed, some guys with beards. We have a whole array. You'll know who the state troopers are. They have the shiny shoes. And with the valley, like I had said earlier, Chelan County, Douglas County, East Wenatchee, they're all coming and they all have different uniforms. What we will have, they have vests on. They'll say police, they'll say trooper, they'll say, detective. They'll say something to let you know they're law enforcement. But be ready to see multiple different uniforms, a whole array of different things. Chiefs, captains, sheriffs, everybody's going to be a little different. So just be aware of that. We like to kind of just tell you about it. You'll more than likely see a lot of rifles. We're going to have rifles in our hands. Some may have pistols. So just be aware of what's going to be going on, okay? It's going to be chaotic. And just remember, it's chaotic for you and us. And we have limited time to make sure everybody's okay, to figure out where the shooter is. Because even if he wasn't in this room, if he would have moved, we're going to come in, give commands, ask you, where's he at? If he left out the side door, this is what he's wearing, things like that. Just make sure you follow commands. If you saw San Bernardino, they had, I don't know how many different uniforms. They had federals there. They had a couple different SWAT teams there with their big trucks, and they all were in different uniforms, different rifles, different things going on. So just remember, there will be some sort of identifier on us to say police, but just remember, we're going to come in force, and we may not all look normal. Priority of work. This is what we train our officers. And this is a difficult notion for a lot of people, and it's hard for our officers to get over as well. But you have to understand, if we respond to an active shooter, our very first priority is to stop the killing. That's what our job is. So if we show up, we still hear gunfire, we're training our guys just to go in. They learn some special tactics on how to operate as a 1-2-man team, 3-man, 4-man, but we don't sit and wait, we go. But we have to stop the killing. So what that means for you guys, be aware, if you are in the hallway, if you've been shot, if you're injured, you're scared, we know this and we will come back for you. But they're going to blow right by you. And this takes a lot for us because a lot of us, we get into this job to help people. That's what we want to do. And we train our officers with some basic combat medical skills for gunshot wounds, things like that. So we want to help. But our job is to stop the killing. We have to go find the shooter, take care of him, and then we'll be coming back. there's going to be more officers coming behind us. And once we know the shooting's done and we've stopped the killing, then we're going to start going through. We're going to start clearing. We're going to start getting aid. Our medical, fire, ambulance, calls like this come out, they're going to stage. They usually stage 2-3 blocks away to let us do what we need to do, give us the room. And then once we know it's clear, they start to move in, and then that's when we're going to start getting you guys out. We have teams that will come in, start rendering first aid to whoever's shot and injured. So just be aware that we're going to go by you in the beginning, but you won't be forgotten, okay? Just for recently, like this is a pretty big building, 4 floors, right? A lot of office building. What we do, you saw with San Bernardino and some of the other rooms, we clear every room once we know. If the shooting stopped, then we go floor by floor, door by door. So if you've made the decision to deny access and you're locked in your office, it could be a while. I think it took, that San Bernardino building was massive. Even with the bodies and the manpower they had, they were still locked in. Some people were locked in their office for 6 hours. So be prepared to be in your office for a little bit. If you've decided to do that and you've been successful, just hold tight. Because we will clear every door, every room, every nook and cranny, and we will get to you eventually. But be aware that there's going to be that time delay. You may have to be sitting there for a while. Alright, so we talked about this a little bit. Remember, police arrive. She brought it up. It's going to be chaotic. We're going to have, we may have good information. We may have bad information. We may have limited information. All we know is somebody's shooting in the building. That may be all we know. So make sure you follow commands. Show us your hands. If we come into a room, don't go running out a different door. Just let us, do what we say so we can make sure everybody's safe, and we'll get you out of there as safe as possible. This is just a little bit we throw in there. We're switching from that, you don't have to be helpless, you don't have to be a victim. There's several first aid classes. I know there's some in the valley here. There's some you can find online. Go over basic medical information. You can just learn to help your buddy. If you guys end up, somebody gets shot in the hallway, you're able to pull them into your office, shut the door, lock it, deny access. Maybe there's something you can do to help out. All our officers carry a tourniquet with them. I don't obviously right now, but on my duty gear, I carry one tourniquet with me. I have a bag in my patrol car that I carry with me for situations just like this with extra ammo, but I have 3 tourniquets, 2 chest seals, and some compression gauze. And so we're prepared to do this. We train for this, but no, you don't have to you don't have to wait for us. You guys now, there's so many resources out there. You can go out and seek basic medical training, just how to use a tourniquet. That is one of the main things that have saved lives in soldiers overseas and local law enforcement. Just any bullet wound kind of in your extremities where you possibly may bleed out, a tourniquet's going to save lives. So just a basic understanding of tourniquets, how to use them, how to apply them, could save countless lives in these situations. So just be aware of that. You can seek it out. This is kind of for some of the higher ups. Personal issues. Once the shooting stops, that doesn't mean the trauma stops, right? We know that these things can be prolonged. There's going to be some, especially if somebody was injured or killed, you're going to have a plan in place. I know Red Cross, a lot of those guys, they'll come out, they'll have counselors available for a couple days. I know the school district has some counselors, the hospital has counselors for critical incidents. So just be ready though, and be aware that in a situation like this, there's going to be some long-term effects. Be aware of your people. If this does happen, keep an eye on them. And if you need to, start talking to them about it. Maybe give them one counseling session, let them kind of get their wheels turning. But these things happen, it's going to take some time. And you will never get over it, but you have to be able to think of your people after the fact. And think of yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Okay, so we're going to watch, this is going to kind of close this up. It's about an 11-minute video. This is going to talk about the avoid, deny, defend. think it was put on kind of by Walmart. You'll see the video. They took all their kind of propaganda down, but it kind of looks like a Walmart building. So, and we're going to go over, they're going to show you, it's going to be one long scenario of a shooter inside the building. You'll see some people avoiding him, you'll see some denying, and then at the very end you'll see somebody defend. This is just to help you kind of realize how quickly this can happen. The gunfire, you'll see the denial, watch for that. You don't want to be that person, right? You want to get through the denial, get into deliberation, and then create an action and go for it. So we'll watch that real quick.
There's a gunman inside the store. We need help now.
What's going to be the solution by the time we...
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Actually, think he's got an old. Let's try to try. If your daughter will be
Not normal behavior, right? So you want to keep an eye out for that.
We need help. There's a gunman inside the store. He's shooting the place out. We need help now.
issues that we found.
Here's another thing though. Watch, she opened the door. Look how big that window is.
Yeah.
If you don't have to open the door, don't open the door.
There you go. Let's get you second for that. This guy's the gun shooting. Look, thanks a lot. No, look! Run! To the right, to the loading dock. Come on, this way. Oh, man. Yeah, in here. The government's coming. What are we gonna do? We're gonna have to defend ourselves.
I can't do this.
You're gonna see your daughter tonight, okay? We are all going to go home tonight. All right? We have a right to defend ourselves. Get the gun! Hey! Hold him down!
the misfortune to be in an active shooter event, you deserve to survive. In our research, we have found that the actions that potential victims take during these events are critical to their survival. We have identified 3 options that have proven effective in many events. These are: avoid the attacker, deny the attacker access to your area, defend yourself. It is a personal decision, but you have a right to do so. Avoiding the attacker starts with being aware of your surroundings at all times and knowing what is going on around you. If you see or hear something that looks suspicious, take action. For example, the stalker took immediate and effective action to protect himself when he observed the shooter pulling out weapons from the bag. Others, however, hesitated, and this hesitation can cost them valuable time that they could use to get away from the threat. If you hear something that is, or could be, gunfire, start trying to get away from it as soon as possible. Gunfire has a distinctive sound. Inside of buildings, the sound can be muffled or distorted. A single loud bang could be a person dropping something, or even thunder. But repeated loud bangs are much more likely to be gunfire. Additionally, look at the reaction of others. Are they startled or scared? Are they running? What are they saying? Any one of these events individually may create denial, but when put together, should create a heightened awareness and stimulate an immediate response. It is important that you know how to get out. The situation will be chaotic and rapidly changing. In general, you will want to go to the nearest exit. But you must also understand that the closest exit may not be accessible or safe to use. If this is the case, go to a different exit. While avoiding the threat, consider the uses of cover and concealment. Cover offers protection from gunfire, while concealment minimizes your exposure to the attacker. Try to keep objects between you and the attacker. If you can't avoid the attacker, sometimes the best option will be to deny the attacker access to your location. In many locations, this can be accomplished by closing and blocking a door, such as they did in the meeting room. Locking the door has proven effective in many attacks. If the door does not have a lock, you can place heavy objects in front of it. Remember, barricades work best if the door opens toward you. If it doesn't, use things that are readily available, such as straps, belts, or objects that can be used to block or secure the door to make it difficult for the attacker to enter the room. This may at least slow the attacker down and give you time to identify alternate means of escape, such as adjoining rooms or windows. When attempting to deny access to your location, you want to make it appear that there is no one in your area. Lock doors, turn off the lights, silence your phones, and get out of sight. Your attempt to deny the attacker access to your location might fail.
The government's coming. What are we going to do? We're going to have to defend ourselves.
Have a backup plan about what you will do. In many cases, this may be to defend yourself. You need to be in a place where you can act if the attacker comes into your location. In most rooms, you will line up against the same wall that the door is on, near the door so you can react, but not directly in front of it. If you are unable to avoid or deny, your best option may be to defend yourself by using whatever is available. In a situation where someone is attempting to kill you, you have the legal right to defend yourself. Attack weak spots such as eyes, throat, and groin. Fight to the best of your ability and do not quit until the attacker is stopped. This is what the workers in the warehouse did when they were unable to avoid the attacker and felt their lives were in immediate danger. Whatever option you choose, call 911 as soon as you are in a safe location. Provide any information that you know. The operator will ask you a lot of questions. If you don't know the answer, don't guess. Just say you don't know and only state the facts.
I'm not sure. There's 3 of us in the room.
This will be a complex situation, and we can't tell you what you should do in every case. What we can do is provide you with information about the options that we have found to be most effective for surviving these attacks. The ultimate choice is yours. What you do matters. Avoid the attacker. Deny access to your location. Defend yourself. Law enforcement will be entering a chaotic scene with limited information. Their first priority will be to stop the threat to your safety. The police may not know where or who the threat is. Listen and comply with their commands immediately.
Put it down, sir. Put it down. Both of you on the ground.
Police are trained to look at people's hands to assess threats. Do not have anything in your hands that could be perceived as a weapon, such as a cell phone.
Show them your hands, sir. Show them your hands. Move to us. Everybody, keep your hands up, please. Walk out the door.
If told to do so, stay where you are and do not make sudden movements. Again, follow all commands. Remember, what you do matters. Avoid the attacker. Deny access to your location. Defend yourself. Remember, ADD. You can survive.
All right. So there they kind of just brought it together for you. Remember, avoid, deny, defend. You guys have to make the decision. We can't make it for you. We can just help you equip the tools so that you can increase your survivability of incident for an active shooter incident. Here's my contact information. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. That's my work cell phone. You can leave me a voicemail. If I'm not working, I'll get back to you. And handouts, too, if you guys would like them.
Have any questions for Corey or Mark before we end?
Yes, sir.
The guy that was stocking the shells, you know, at the point that he saw a shotgun and a duffel bag, would that be considered stating his intentions, the active shooter? And could he just like run up and elbow him in the face or something?
Well,
I know that's not avoiding.
Right. Well, no, that's like they said. It's your decision.
Okay.
But you have to put everything in perspective, right?
Sure.
So he's in a store. He's putting earplugs in, and he has weapons. You can probably figure out what's going on to the point where something's not right. If you make that decision, you just have to be able to state why you made that decision, and be able to justify it. There was a situation where I think it was at a Walmart. A gentleman was open carrying legally, and there was another gentleman who was, I think, concealed carrying legally. They were both legal, and he just drew down on this guy and told him to get on the ground, called the cops, and that guy ended up getting. You can't just if there's no real reason. I mean, putting in the earplugs, that's a good sign. He's opening the bag. It's a shotgun, not a pistol. Yeah, I would definitely be. You have to make that decision what you're going to do at that point, but yeah.
If most active shooters aren't playing to live, why would he care about hearing loss?
They want to give you an extra second.
In the zone. Maybe that's how we practice.
Right. Well, and that's what, we, in stressful situations, we always go back to how we train. So he may just kept training like that, and that's what he wanted to, so we keep that repetitive, just like, people are packing their suitcases, shutting off the computer. I mean, it happens for the gunman just as much as it does us when we get in these stressful situations.
So if you're locked in your office and then someone knocks on the door and they say they're the police, how would you know?
We get that a lot. I got to attend a debrief from the Sandy Hook elementary shooting. A teacher got all her students in a tiny, tiny bathroom. They were their first classroom actually on his way. and the police entered, and it actually happened to be the police chief. And they were saying, police, open the door, and she just didn't want to open the door. Some of us will have Velcro badges. We may slide those under the door for you. If you can, there's going to be several of us. You can call 911. You can verify. I'm in room, 231, and I have people outside saying they're cops. Just be aware it's pretty chaotic. Our radios are going to be pretty hammered with communications between teams and stuff. So try and do your best. You do it until you feel safe. But we'll try the best we can if we can slide a badge or something like that. I know in the Sandy Hook, they slid a badge under and she said she thought it was fake. But it's up to you. You have to feel safe and you have to feel, willing to open that door for us. But we're going to do everything we can. But these things aren't, plastic. They're real. So
and we're not going to leave that room. We're not going to leave that door. I mean, if you don't open it up, we're going to stay there and continue to get you to open that door. Right. It's not like something we're going to pass by work. We'll say,
right. And unfortunately, if it gets to the point, we may say, step back, we're coming in. We will come into that room. But we want you to feel safe, and so we'll give you command saying, hey, this is the Wenatchee Police, we're coming in, step away from the door, step away, you'll kind of get the rhythm, you'll know, but
we have these called rams that can usually take doors.
Rams.
Yep.
And we're not,
but no, that's a good question. Right.
A lot of people believe too that, in our case, we'd be looking at it from the other way, going, well, why aren't they opening the door?
Right.
Or maybe it's because the gunman's in there. So we're gonna force our way in one way or the other.
Right. But that's a good question. Great question. Any other questions?
Rich, you all?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to tell you your email is missing a T on Wenatchee.
It is.
So don't email that email.
Lorraine asked a question. I didn't want to interrupt the presentation, but I wanted to get back more than anything else to help validate a couple of things. One is the specific question you answered. She's talking about the main entrance door.
Yeah,
the right hand or left hand opens, but the right hand does not. Just remember, and we see this a lot in schools too, that many of these buildings were constructed before we could even, quite frankly, have imagined that we'd even be having training on something like this, right? Let alone get a chance to read about it in the paper, or it seems like we hear about it almost every week of some kind of event. So your point's really well taken. One of the things that we wanted to do today was just to simply help raise awareness. So that you can help us, and that's a classic question. We'll think about, is there a way, for example, for that second door, which originally was designed so that when you were trying to move large equipment into the building, a man lift or large
computers back then when it was
computers, that you had to be able to open those doors wide enough to be able to do that. Well, it was designed so that could be done only every so often, right, when it was necessary. Today, it has to take on a different kind of look. So my point is that we welcome that kind of awareness and wondering. You work in your space every day just like I do. You know your workspace better than anyone else in the room, right? So we'll rely on you to help. That's the point of today, is to create not fear, but to create smart awareness about this is the world in which we live in. My cabinet will tell you that when this was first brought to my attention that we could do this kind of training, as you might imagine, the dilemma for me was, well, it's kind of a concern because one, I don't want to scare everybody, but secondly, we want to create enough awareness so that we can be as safe as we possibly can. And so that kind of feedback coming either through the safety committee or through our safety tip line, or however it gets to us, or it's just grabbing Rich in the hallway and say, you know what, have you noticed what I've noticed? Or I wonder if, do you see that as a concern like I do? That's going to be really important. And so good validation, those are the kinds of questions we're going to want along the way, right, at the end of the day. I don't know, even though Mark and Corey are very kind about our building and that it's very safe and all that kind of routine, I don't know that we can be 100% safe, but let's do everything we can to get as close to that as we possibly can. So keep the feedback coming, okay?
So in these office settings, do you find people do a lot of
drilling, right? So I used to work at a hospital and we drilled all the time, did
Right.
disaster drills all the time.
Yeah.
But when I came to work here, we don't focus on that as much, and I understand why. So
Right.
then I guess my question is that something you, I mean, obviously drills help people prepare and help them respond and things like that, but is that something you recommend?
That's something, we do training all the time. I mean, that's one of the key aspects to being successful, is going through the training. So that would definitely be something I would bring, like he was saying, bring to them, voice your concern that, we've never really even, just to have what we call tabletops, where we sit around a big table, there's a scenario, and they say, okay, this is what you have. And somebody kind of orchestrates that to where they say, okay, a guy walked into the front door, he started shooting at the receptionist. You're on the third floor. I said at.
That's right, so that's when I run, is when the shooting starts.
Right, started shooting at people. You're on the third floor, what are you going to do? So just that alone too, tabletop exercises are a great help. But yeah, I mean, that's something if you're concerned about, I think they're great training. I mean, that's why we train so much. And we run our guys through stuff countless, even if it's not official, just on our shifts. We'll bring it up, say, hey, let's clear this hallway real quick and let's work together as a team. And that you can do just in your lower level too. If you're in this where you have all those offices, what are we gonna do? Because you can only concern about that area at that moment. It's hard to think other levels. So.
Does our panic button report to the police or just to you guys? Like if we pressed it, it just goes to you guys?
There's text messages to Pete and Rich and several others, and then the light that goes back in the main floor and the first floor.
There's no noise or anything?
There's no noise,
light?
but we do have the all call on your phones, and I would encourage everybody to go back and look at that little sticker on there on how to do it, and not do it by happenstance when you're cleaning your phone. Thanks, Trevor. Doing that, and
Could have happened to anybody.
it could have happened to anybody. I mean, but here's what happens when that happens. I'm cleaning away, and all of a sudden I get this phone call, and I pick up my phone. I'm like, "Hey, Trevor, what's going on?" He goes, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "What do you mean? Am I okay? I'm just cleaning my phone." Well, you just sent an all call throughout the whole building. But not only did I send an all call, so I can't hear anybody, but everybody could hear my cleaning of the phone. You actually get to go around and reset every phone, because every phone then is on this all call where you can hear what's coming in, but that you can't talk to anybody. So go look at that sticker, don't practice it, but know the buttons to push when you need it, okay?
Yep. So if we were to have, say, an all call, what would we say? What do you
Whatever the emergency is.
But
So,
would you report where something
Yes.
was? That's what you're supposed to.
And for Trevor, it showed it was from my office.
No, I
so
mean
you
if
would know.
you knew that there was a gunman on the first whatever, you would be specific in your description.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I would try just so people don't go running to the wrong area.
Yes.
That would be the biggest thing. If you're trying to avoid, make sure if you can get it out, I mean, be safe. But if you can get it out, somebody's got a gun on the first floor. And then that gives everybody higher, that gives you time to lock your office, secure yourself, hide yourself, and kind of get ready for that.
And just to answer Teresa's question, if the panic button up front desk gets pushed, that text message comes to I know it's at least 3 of us. That's a 911 call from us automatically. And the reason it comes text is because Pete may not be in the building today, or I may not. But the bottom line is if that text comes up, I'm going to call 911, and as these guys will tell you, our agreement is we'll work out later if it was someone was cleaning the red button. That's that routine.
It's not a red button either.
I'd much rather have them come right away. And so the intent there, as you can tell, is just no matter where we happen to be, it's a 911 call.
And we get those a lot, panic buttons at banks, stuff like that, Most of the time they're false alarms, but like we say earlier, I'd rather be safe than dead. So, if that's something that happens, we're willing to come out. That's what we do. We want to come out and make sure people are safe, even if it's a false alarm. So yeah, please don't hesitate.
So if they're out walking and the panic button is pushed, if they come in the front door, they'll see the light then?
They won't, no, you won't see the light unless you go into the hall, into the first floor where the cubicles, where Barb's cubicle is, it's in that area.
It's a light in the ceiling right above Barb's desk. You'll see it in there.
It's a strobe, right?
It's a strobe light.
Yes.
So it doesn't trigger the exterior strobes?
No.
'Cause I know there's lights outside.
No, it does not trigger the fire exterior. The reason for it is that if Shay is confronted with somebody, she doesn't want to alert them. In fact, I didn't even know for sure where it was until we did the walkthrough a couple weeks ago, and I said, Shay, show us. She literally could walk up and just kind of tap it, and she didn't. But I mean, it's right there to where whoever's standing at the front desk probably wouldn't even realize she was pushing it. And that's the reason for it.
Yeah. I don't know, I guess for me the only thing is like if we do have people outside who are not, inside the building at the time, they could walk into a situation unknowingly. I guess that's my only
because there's
thought.
lots of walkers that take their breaks around.
Exactly, or if we have
And I think that could happen anytime, anywhere, any place. You know, that you may walk in and sense something's going on by the look on Shay's face also. You know, so I think it's your self-awareness of what's going on around you is important. I don't know how something we can look at to see if there's another.
And I think you're only going to be, that situation will only occur if the situation is just starting.
Yes.
Because what you're going to see is a bunch of people fleeing the building.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if that's the case.
Or hear gunfire, so you'll know. Well, I shouldn't walk into the door.
But I want to thank both Mark and Corey very much for coming here. I also want to thank Brooke for putting this together because she's been on the phone organizing it and doing the tours for not only this building but ESD West and the safety committee. They're the ones that went around and put all the emergency stickers on the phones a couple years ago, produced the video, the safety video that we have. So I really appreciate everybody's input, everybody's involvement. This takes all of us to make sure that we can remain as safe of a building as we possibly can. And we also have the anonymous tip line, and it is not housed or held here at all. So if you sense something that even in the behavior of somebody, just, they talk a lot about if they would have known all the little things coming up to whatever was the culminating event, it probably could have been stopped much easier. And I always think of the Mary Kay Letourneau case, and we hear about this at every law conference that we go to, about if that janitor would have thought that's odd that they're in the room with the lights off, or that person would have thought that's odd that they're out in public, and somebody would have reported that in an anonymous or been very forthright with their name, it doesn't matter. That information would have been there ahead of time, probably would have helped. And we're in the same situation here. If there's something going on, a comment's made that just seems odd, don't be afraid to use that anonymous tip line. That's what it's for. And it truly is anonymous. We have no way of knowing. There's no email attached to it. You can leave a phone message. You can disguise your voice. We don't care. We just want to know about it. We just want to be able to help early. So
where does one find the anonymous tip line number?
It's on the intranet.
Oh, okay.
When you click on Safe Personnel, it gives you the option there of sending a text that comes through with an anonymous number, not your phone number. It gives you a way to log into the website, which then comes in as an anonymous email, not your email, and also the phone number.
Okay. Corey, how many times have you guys presented this in the Wenatchee Valley?
We've actually gone. We did one in Leavenworth last month. I think we've been doing close to 10 now, just within the last 6 months.
That's awesome.
And the video, if you Google avoid, deny, defend, the video's out there on YouTube because I showed it to my husband after I watched this because I thought it was really good.
Alert. This isn't something we keep secret. We want people to be successful. So it's very accessible out there.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.